So 30 years ago, I stopped eating red meat. I've not eaten cows, anything like that. And that was just because I didn't like it, for one. And I was, I've always been an animal lover. I always consider myself somewhat of an animal activist. Used to be interested in spay and neuter and fur and those kind of topics. And just didn't eat a lot of meat. I did, however, eat chicken and dairy products. So in 2015, that changed because we lived next door to that herd of cows. We rented a house right next to a herd of cows. It was a cow-calf operation, so we'd see, they were all mothers. They'd have babies every year, and then they would get their babies taken away. We noticed that they had personalities. They had likes and dislikes. They made friends. They'd grieve when their babies were taken from them. We named them. My kids would sit out and watch them. They would watch us. They'd watch the kids play ball and the dogs run around, and they'd stand at the fence and watch. And I don't know, I guess I never knew that. I didn't eat cows then, but I was still drinking milk. I was still eating cheese. So what I learned about them, I decided, well, we live in farm country, cattle country here anyway, so everybody's got a herd of cows, and they're not pets, so they're not treated as individuals. But what if someone created a place where you could meet cows that were treated as individuals, and then you got to know them and you could see their uniqueness like we did, which I had never had. We grew up in the city when I was young, and we didn't have cows next door. So I started doing research. No, there weren't any farm rescues out here, of course. So I thought that is something that would be beneficial to the air. Most people didn't think so, but for the cows it was. The more research I did, the more I found how awful I was for the things that I was supporting. Just with dairy, it's horrible, and I wish I had thought of looking into it further years ago. It's just a horrible industry, probably worse than any other that we've in our experience. And chickens, of course. Chickens, I feel so bad even talking about it, because I used to be one of those people. Oh, what's this chicken? No, they're wonderful. We have over 100 birds here, and they all have their own names. They all know their own names. Some of them come to their names. They all have individual personalities. I couldn't think of eating them now. So 2015, when all of that information came to me, we just stopped. We stopped as a family, because it was just the right thing to do. So we all instantly just shut off dairy, shut off any meat anyone was eating, and turned the research over to how can I eat vegan, and stop doing all the harm that we're doing unintentionally. So from that point on, I wasn't part of the problem, and I wanted to do better and try to do my part to make things a little bit better for the animals moving forward. It wasn't about me anymore. I didn't become vegan for health. became vegan because it's factory farming is evil. And if more people knew a lot of it, then I think more people wouldn't. So I think it was kind of a relief, and I didn't feel like I was being selfish anymore, I guess. I mean, the meat and the eggs and the milk isn't mine to begin with, so no. And they're fine. And my kids too, they totally get it. They speak out for animals too whenever they have the chance to their friends and just people in general. They know. I didn't hide anything from them. They've seen the videos. They see what's going on, so they can walk out into the world and hopefully, do something good at some point too. Yeah. I didn't necessarily, people ask me this a lot though too. I didn't necessarily do this because it was my dream. A lot of people come to me all the time, "You're living my dream." And I'm like, I don't think I am. I really don't think I am. And I invite those people here to volunteer. But no, it wasn't an intentional. I did grow up loving animals. I did have animals as a kid, not so much farm animals. Had no experience with cows, sheep, goats, anything. It was my conscience. That was it. I felt there was a need, and I felt that I was in the perfect place to bring that to life. To tell those cows stories and to form something else to not help them. And I tried. I made friends with that farmer. The one cow in particular, lady, I loved her. She's gone now. She was the oldest. She was a herd leader, kind of sassy, but she was my absolute favorite. And I tried to get him to surrender, but farmers don't do that because cows are money. So we did name Little Lady. One of our dairy rescues is after her. That's where her name came from. Little Lady. It wasn't a lifelong dream. It wasn't intentional. I was going to school. My training is in criminal forensic science. So you couldn't get any farther away from that. I love that field. I didn't work in it. I just went to school for it. But I just started this, and this is where it led me. I really don't know how to explain it. It's stressful. It's dirty. It's extremely hard work. I do sometimes wish I was out solving crimes, in a lab, but this was more important. It fell on my conscience, and I felt like I needed to do something else. Like, this is where I should be instead. This is what I should be speaking out for. I've become very, very passionate about it since then. And I think you know that. Shy 38. Well, I named it that because we are based on the idea that the farm animals are unique. They have individual personalities. They have a will to live. They would live if they were given a choice. They have other purposes on Earth besides, what humans have decided they're good for. So out of that herd of cows in the very beginning that belonged to the farmer, one of those cows never really warmed up to us. She'd stay just far enough away. She was super shy, so that's the shy part, and her ear tag had the number 38. So to the farmer, she was known simply as 38. We knew her as that shy cow in the back that was curious, but wouldn't come up to the fence, wouldn't let us touch her, wouldn't take an apple, but that just makes her who she is. Some of them are very outgoing. Some of them would stand at the fence and scream until we got the apple from the tree. One, Lola, even came at 7 o'clock every morning and would moo toward the window, waiting for somebody to exit the house. And they're all individuals. So that's why I went with that, other than just like Kansas Farm Sanctuary. No, there's a really strong meaning behind it. And when people come here, they realize that because they see it in these cows. Cows would have babies every year. Some as many as like 4 or 5, and they'd return year after year. Some didn't return, so I assume if they stopped having babies, they were sold. The ones that we knew are probably all gone now. None of them are probably alive. 20 to 30 cows there. And there'd always be a bull. Of course, we'd make friends with him too. He was just a big dopey baby, but the female cows were the ones that we named, and so we'd know immediately when he'd come in the spring, and we'd watch him get off. And I remember just hoping, please let Lady. One year she didn't, and it was because apparently the farmer's wife had a favorite too, and that was her. So she wasn't killed for meat. But was her life good? Because even though the cows aren't people, they visibly change with grief when they're running and pacing in the field and crying and calling out day and night for a week. It was very sad. So she went through that many times until she died. 38, we weren't close to her. She's the namesake, we didn't try to push ourselves, we just let them do what they did. And she was shy, and I don't know, but I'm quite sure she's not living. That's the whole point, He'll replace those with other cows and then do it all again. So I'm here to tell their story.